started? Or Elaine, can you do me one favor?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Can you reach out to Doug and make sure, Brenna, to make sure that he's not having issues?
I can do that. Yes, ma'am.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
I'd like to call the special meeting of the Wyoming Charter School Authorizing Board to attention. And can we please start with the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Did everyone get a chance to see the agenda?
Madam Chair, would you like me to call roll?
I'm sorry?
Would you like me to call roll?
Oh, yes, please. Well,
Thank
oh, yeah, that's right after. Go ahead.
Oh, did I interrupt? I'm sorry. Maybe I interrupted the agenda. Joe Filer. Alan Buss.
Present.
Steve Lupian.
Excused.
Doug Chamberlain. Jill Bramlett.
Present.
John Masters.
Here.
Fred Von Ahrens.
Present.
Chairman Bayteski.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Great. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you. Can I have a
Point of
second?
order. Point of, where was the agenda circulated? I don't seem to find a copy.
It was on the same email that gave you the link to the meeting.
Okay, I'll look again. Don't hold up on my account.
It's
Oh, there
quite
it is.
short, John.
Okay.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Very good. Any changes to the agenda? We really can't accept any since this is a special meeting. All those in favor of the agenda as presented, please say aye.
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 Aye. The agenda is approved. The purpose of today's meeting is to discuss the Alpine agenda, or the Alpine amendment. And I would just like to start with reviewing a timeline or a summary of where we've been and where we've been. First of all, just to bring us all back to the beginning, Alpine submitted their application to this board on July 31st, 2024. And in that application, they outlined APA as their ESP, or Education Service Provider. On October 24th, 2024, we as a board approved that application, once again with APA as the Education Service Provider. On January 25th, we approved the contract from that application, once again with APA as the Education Service Provider, January 25th of 2025. In April of 2025, Alpine terminated their relationship with APA to resolve community concerns. On June 16th, 2025, we as a board met and approved a resolution which reshaped the Alpine contract and basically put a bunch of work on the plate of the applications committee to try and find a way through. We moved forward from that June 16th date for several months, entertaining several options, including a unified governance structure. Several months ago, the application committee, and as you all remember, at our monthly meetings, they've been giving us updates on where they were and working through things. And we've been having discussions with our attorney, Mr. Williams. And finally, I would say it was, I don't remember the exact date, but I think it was about 3 months ago, we really decided that the only way forward was really with a charter management organization structure, governance structure. So in January of this year, the Alpine folks submitted a Blue Line contract with proposed amendments which utilize that CMO governing structure. And then fast forward to where we are today, Mr. Williams has drafted his opinion of that structure and where we're headed. So the hopes are today that we can have a healthy discussion about those contract changes, what a CMO agreement really means, and leading to an approval of the contract tomorrow. At this point, I'm just going to turn it over to Dr. Buss, the chair of our applications committee, and let him lead the discussion, please.
Right, thank you, Madam Chair. So I appreciate that summary because we've been throwing out a lot of acronyms and explanations of organizational structures and the components of the schools. So starting with the unified governance structure, but I'm just mentioning that. I'm not going to go into any depth. That was something that we discussed initially, where we were talking about basically satellite schools and so forth. But that is not something that is part of this amendment. And so I'm just going to leave it at that. But what really is at the heart of the amendment is a charter management organization and also the educational service provider. And so Janine asked if I would go through some of the things about what a charter management organization is. And so really just in brief, a charter management organization is typically a nonprofit organization that a charter school will contract with to provide back-end services. So rather than having to run everything internally in the school, the CMO is contracted to be able to provide support services. And this is evident both in the amendment that we received, as well as in Mackenzie Williams's opinion statement on this. And so the CMO, as presented in the charter amendment, is really to be able to provide supports for the Alpine School, along with the Wyoming Classical Academy that's in Casper. So basically, they'd be both working with Academica to be able to provide these services. Again, these are back-end services. These are not decision-making services. They're not providing any oversight. They're really providing services to the schools. Then we also have the distinction of an educational service provider. And again, in the amendment, both of these are mentioned on. Let's see if there's a page number. Well, let's see. I guess it's just pages 1 and 2, talking about the charter management agreement. And if I may, Madam Chair, I'm just going to try to share. Do I have sharing capability?
Let's see here.
Madam Chair, Mr. Buss, you should have sharing capabilities at this time.
All right, thank you. So I think, all right. So this is page 1 and page 2 of the amendment. So again, mentioning the charter school management agreement and what that.
Actually, Madam Chairman, I think this is our attorney's advice to us letter, isn't it?
There's one similar to this.
Well, that would be confidential if it's the attorney's letter.
Am I sharing the wrong document?
That's why I mention it.
All right, let me stop sharing. Thank you, John. I've got all of these up on my windows. All right, this one is the correct one, I think.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for catching that. All right, so again, end of page 1, beginning of page 2, talking about what a charter management agreement would be, and also the educational service provider. So in this particular case, Academica is specifically identified as the ESP, or the educational service provider, to be able to provide these supports. And so there is some distinction made here, but between the two. And I guess at that point, I'm going to open it up for questions among the board members about either the CMO or an ESP, or what they provide or what they don't provide.
John Masters?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So Academica will be the ESP, not the CMO. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
And so we received a little memo describing what a CMO is. Is that memo essentially irrelevant to our discussion today?
What I'll say is that the CMO, since it is in this amendment, was a big part of what we would be talking about until we received the counsel from Mr. Williams. And again, I'm not sure how much of that I could talk about, but the frequently asked questions document that we sent out was to help provide some clarifications as to what the CMO would do or what it would not do in terms of where its authoritative boundaries lie.
Madam
So,
Chairman?
Mr. Masters, if I may,
Sure.
my understanding of the difference between an ESP and a CMO, and Mackenzie can certainly straighten me out if I go awry here, but in order to be a CMO, you also have to be an LLC
As opposed
versus
to,
an ESP, which is just a CMO is a nonprofit LLC that works the same function as you would have with an ESP.
well, I'm having trouble understanding why the tax status would be very important to us, but
It's not important to me. This is what the footnote that Mackenzie forwarded to us says.
I took a lot of comfort in the description of the CMO, since I thought it was less intrusive in the local management and the local decision making and the local use of funds, the local handling of funds. And so unless an ESP encapsulates a CMO, I guess I'd have all those same questions, but directed towards the ESP model.
Mackenzie, can you bail us out here?
Sure. I don't think there's any bailing out to be done, but just to sort of clarify, what I was able to discover is that within sort of the charter school world, which I'm not super familiar with, but at least from what I was able to learn, there is some differences in terminology in some of these terms. In the context of your written agreement, however, there's one term, and that's ESP. And so I think that it's important to sort of distinguish the reason for using the term ESP in the contract. That's because it's a legally defined term within the charter school statutes. The role is whatever the charter school contracts for our purposes. So if that role looks more like what would be sort of in the field considered to be a CMO, then that certainly is fine. I guess I want to sort of think of it as sort of two different languages. We're using one definition of the term ESP for the contract purposes because that's the statutory language and it encompasses all sorts of different models, at least within our statutes. And so it doesn't really say anything about what the model looks like by just saying ESP. What really matters is the relationship there.
Madam Chairman?
John?
It would be helpful to me, and perhaps only to me, if we could pull up that frequently asked question document and go through it and say, instead of CMO, let's think about it from ESP, because that the ESP, well, my concern is I want to make sure that the folks in Alpine continue to have the necessary control that I think they should have. And I thought they would if they were dealing with a CMO. And I don't know that that's the case if they're dealing with an ESP.
So what
Madam Chair,
Mackenzie wants to do, John, is he wants to substitute CMO, ESP for CMO. So these questions, the answers to these questions would remain the same.
right.
And if that's the case, then I think I understand what an ESP is. But I also heard that ESP had additional functions. For example, helping locate staff and curriculum and things like that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe those are not additional functions.
It depends on what the contract with that ESP looks like.
Right. And do we have a copy of that contract?
Those are not our contracts. Those are the contracts between Alpine and the ESPs. Those really, we don't shape those.
Well, I understand that, but on the other hand, I want to make sure their contracts comport with state law. So I'll stand down and let others ask.
Can we stand down and let Alan and Fred speak, please? Alan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, what I would say is typically one of the differences between a charter school management organization and an ESP could be that the ESP is providing more curricular support, but I don't know if they're actually providing assistance with hiring and those kinds of things, because they're just providing that educational support in that manner. But yeah, yes, I would agree that in light of what Mackenzie was presenting, that the FAQ on CMOs could easily, in this particular case, be just swapped out with ESP, because again, from the amendment that was presented, that they highlighted that there really is not a distinction or an effort to eliminate or weaken the local governing board, to supersede the authority of our board, and so forth.
So,
Yeah.
Madam Chair, it may help if I read the definition of education service provider from the charter school statute specifically, because I think you'll find that it incorporates the CMO idea.
Okay.
Education service provider means a for-profit or nonprofit education management organization, charter management organization, or any other partner entity that a charter school contracts with for educational program implementation or for comprehensive management. So essentially, ESP is the term used in the agreement because that's what we have under the statute. And it's an all-encompassing term that incorporates what would normally, I think, be referred to as a CMO and various other like terms.
Thank you, Mackenzie. That's very helpful.
Thank you. Yeah.
Fred?
Madam Chair, and perhaps this would help. The more we studied this, John Masters, the more in my mind we had one ESP, which was APA, and now we have essentially two, and that is we just transferred APA from an Alpine perspective to Academica on one hand, and then for the development and curriculum to the second. And that's the difference from my perspective.
Yes, John.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mackenzie, at the very end of his statutory definition, talked about a comprehensive, I'm not sure I got the term exactly right, comprehensive services of some sort, which suggests to me that all of the answers to the FAQ could be modified by that concept of comprehensiveness. So, for example, all of the financial questions and all of the financial dealings, payment of bills, collection of revenues, those types of things could be within an ESP. And I realize they might not be, which is the reason I'd like to see the contract to know whether we've delegated all of those responsibilities. And I say we, whether the state of Wyoming, acting through the folks in Alpine, have delegated all of that to Academica, or whether they've retained those things. Because at least to me, those are important. Thank you, ma'am.
John, I will just go back and restate what I said, is that if you took this CMO document, frequently asked questions, this is exactly where the relationship is headed between Alpine and WCA. McKenzie, the only reason McKenzie inserted ESP instead of CMO is because that is the phraseology that shows in the statute. Fred?
Thank
One
you.
more thing. Maybe this will help. The definitions that we have there came directly from Academica for the CMO, and to our knowledge is the direction that the contract with Alpine is established, and that's per Academica. And our review, by the way, with our discussion as we were with Alpine the last few days.
John Masters, did you have another question?
No, I just forgot to lower my hand. Thank you.
And if I may, Madam Chair, so again, in the amendment, there's some, in Appendix A, these same points are highlighted as well, in such as that the Wyoming Charter School Authorizing Authority retains sole and exclusive authority over the charter school's charter contract, oversight, and accountability. Whereas nothing in this agreement is intended, nor shall it be construed to modify, limit, supersede, or interfere with the legal relationship, rights, duties, or obligations. So what we have in that FAQ, I think, is well matched with what was in the amendment that we received.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
All that being said, I think we as a governing board do have a responsibility to understand the contractual relationship between Academica and our charter school. And if for no other reason than to ensure that the representations made to us in the application and adopted within the contractual relationship are in fact a true statement of the relationship. So I realize, one, that contract may not yet exist, and it probably will come into existence pretty soon. But two, I think if we don't do that, that function of our board, which is kind of supervisory over whether our contract is being adhered to, is out the window. And we could ask Mr. McKenzie Williams for his legal opinion, but that would require going into an executive session. So I'll just state my concern at this point. Thank you, ma'am.
If I may jump in on that, Madam Chair.
Please.
I was thinking about that, and I guess what I would say from an equitable process perspective, we haven't done that with any of the other charter schools that we've approved. But I do think it is something that is in the counsel that we received from Mr. Williams, that is something we do need to consider in terms of future processes. But in light of this, it's not something that we've looked at for any of our other schools. And so I would recommend that, again, it's something that we consider, but I don't necessarily think it's required in this particular case, because we haven't done that with others when they made their initial charter applications.
And I will suggest to you also that the contract between us and Alpine is much more rigorous than the contract that was between the SLIB boards what we inherited. And I think that we need to review our contract with Alpine and make sure that I think if their relationship with WCA doesn't provide them the ability to meet their contractual obligations with us, then shame on them. So hopefully, as they've constructed their contract with WCA, they understand their contractual agreements with us. Go ahead, John.
Madam Chairman, thank you. Let me lower my hand. Two things. One, I don't think we're bound by what our earlier contract said. And I don't think we've established a legal precedent. And it wasn't ours, essentially. It was the SLIB board, even if there were some legal precedent. I think we're always free to improve or modify the documents we use, whether they be applications or charters. Now, our attorney could weigh in and tell us differently. Secondly, at some point, all of these schools are going to be before us seeking a renewal, or we hope they'll be before us seeking renewal. And at that point in time, it will be incredibly important to me that we know that what they told us they were going to do, they did. And if they have done something differently that they didn't bother to get an amendment about, that's going to concern me greatly. And that's why I say these are really important contracts. I don't care about who provides the paper or the photocopy or things like that, but this type of a contract is very important. And whether it's Alpine or any of our schools, I think we ought to have at least the opportunity to review them and to be advised of what they say. And that's why I say I think at some point we'll probably have that function delegated to our executive director, and perhaps by that point in time our executive director will have somebody that can assist him in those types of things. But I'm not placated to say we have to do it. And we have to accept what they've done. I think it might down the road put us in a very difficult position of saying we have to revoke your charter. And I don't want to be in that position.
So, Madam Chair?
Yes, Fred.
Two thoughts. So the fact that in the amendment, it says that they're going to maintain control, they understand, and that's what they want to do. And they've reviewed the same Q&A that we've maintained. I guess, are we thinking that they went ahead and said, no, you can take care of our fiduciary responsibilities and control our board when they've already committed to having their own board? I'm really confused on what we're talking about here.
Well, Madam Chairman.
Second of all, Matt, I have the chair.
I'm sorry.
Second of all, I'd like to let you know that in the time we have been working on Alpine, which is a tremendous amount of work, the local school here has decided the brand new school that they were authorized by the state of Wyoming isn't big enough for them. And they went out and bought a whole new school to have a whole new setup for CTE. So if we're going to make it this arduous to start up a school and to start up a charter school, I'm wondering if we should even be a board.
Madam Chairman.
Fred? John?
I'm sorry to have interrupted you, Fred. I appreciate what you're saying, and I appreciate that it may be arduous, and I appreciate the hard work that everybody puts in, both on this board and on the local boards in their application process. But I also appreciate at some point we're asking our local board to advise, in this case, Academica, of what the restrictions are and to get them to agree to those restrictions. Now, maybe that's happened. I don't know, and that's what I would like to know. But I kind of hate putting our local board in that position unless they can say, we must do these things, and we don't have any negotiating authority otherwise than to do these things. And I think that's kind of what we're all trying to get to, but I'm not confident that's what's going to happen. Thank you, Madam Chairman. And really, I feel like I've beaten the horse enough. I will.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, one more comment real quick. I'd just like to say that, John, the Q&A came from Academica. I'm not sure how much more validation we need from them.
Well, if they want to put the Q&A as an attachment to that
Ron,
contract,
would you
that'd
like
be
to
great.
speak?
Yeah. No.
I was
mean-
just going to say, Madam
Jan?
Chair, my thoughts on all of this is we have worked as an application committee hard. You guys went down to Alpine. I think to do and to be true to what we've explained to Alpine, that we have to move forward. I also think that, John, I agree that there are things probably we should do, but I think that was all explained by McKinsey. And so I think in the future that we as a board need to sit down and get those things figured out so that we're consistent all the way across with everything. But I think it would be a big mistake not to move forward with Alpine.
So may I offer another historical perspective on all of this? That's going to tag off of something that Fred said. Is back in 2021, the legislature passed legislation which gave the authority to the SLIB board to authorize state-approved charter schools. The reason, do we all understand the reason behind that? The reason behind it was because they felt that when schools within a district applied for a charter, the processes that the district dragged them through was so arduous that we weren't getting any schools approved. You fast forward to 2023, they established us because they didn't think that the SLIB board really had all of the knowledge base and time to be able to really deal with this and to make sure that we were approving high quality schools. So they put us in place. So here we are, and I feel like if we're going to have to approve every contract between the approved school and their ESPs, we're dragging them through the same mud that the districts drag their schools through. It just makes me really ill at ease. I think McKenzie did a stellar job when he did this contract between us and Alpine. In fact, as I mentioned, it's a lot more rigorous than any of the other three contracts. And so I personally do not want to get in the middle of negotiating contracts between Alpine and Academic or Alpine and WCA. It's not our job. Our job is to enforce the contract that we have with Alpine. Am I wrong?
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I think you're correct that we do not want to be intermediaries negotiating a contract. On the other hand, I see that as different from understanding and having a copy of the contract before us. Now, I expect that later today or possibly tomorrow, we will talk about the RTO document that I think we should be using. Perhaps this would be the first time to use it. And one of the checkpoints on that RTO document would be, have you entered into a contract with an ESP? Please provide a copy of the contract. And that would be the evidence supporting that, yes, they did. And yes, it comports with the representations being made. But I still think, I don't care about, like I said, the photocopier or the phone system contract. I do care about who's providing really important stuff for the school and especially for the students within the school. So that all being said, I think that's where we should be thinking. You know, it would be nice to see their lease. It would be nice to know what their mortgage and financing arrangements look like and whether they are fiscally capable of fulfilling, you know, a break even. And I'd like to see a break even analysis. They provided that in the original.
That's different than a contract.
I know, but the mortgage is certainly not different than a contract. But all those things I think would support or cause concern that any particular school is going to succeed. And as I mentioned, I don't want to see any of them fail. I especially don't want to see them fail in their first year. So that's my concern. Thank you, ma'am.
I'll tell you my concern, John. My concern is you're asking for this RTO, I believe is what it's called, document, to be included here. I've not even seen the document. I think it is in poor governance to ask for them to fill out a document that we as a board have not even approved or seen.
Madam Chairman, may I respond?
Yes.
Okay, so the RTO is something that came to our attention when we were at the NACSA meeting, which is
And I was not there.
yeah, and which is a relatively new document even to NACSA. And I thought two things. It simplified the application process because you can't answer some of the questions that the application anticipates until you've actually done the work. And we don't want them doing certain types of work like signing leases in advance of the application being approved. So the second thing is that it provides a checklist, which I think is very helpful for everybody, so that we know what they plan to do and they know what they need to do. And when all those things are checked off and there's evidence that all of them have been completed, it makes sense for them to open the school. That's what the RTO document is. I don't see any problem with it. I think it's just good policy, if nothing else, but it certainly, I think, would be helpful for all the parties concerned. And I see Fred.
I don't disagree. What I disagree with is you're asking at this point to have a document added that I haven't even seen. And it has not been approved by this board. That is not good governance, John.
Nor is it good governance to be, 12 or 14 months after the approval, and we know that they've lost APA 10 months ago or whatever.
That's our fault.
Yeah, I don't want to ascribe fault to anybody. I'm just saying, just because we can't do it right now doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it.
I didn't say we shouldn't do it.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Fred.
So look, and I think, John Masters, you understand how much I respect you and what you've done on RIDE and for here and your concern about the children. A couple things. We are not in a contract here. We are in a contract amendment. We've already given these folks the approval to go. We have learned a tremendous amount. I mean, we have come, and particularly the executive committee and the applications committee, who've been working on this for a long time, have tried to work on a solution that allowed them to basically change their ESP. We believe that this is way better than losing local control, losing responsibility or accountability for their money flow, which we did talk about with this unified governance. And then we came to the conclusion, in my words, essentially what they've done is got a new ESP, in this case, 2 instead of 1. And both of them are very credible, and we've reviewed them. That said, we also, during this time, have learned about this startup document. There's no doubt after the visit with Alpine, they clearly have a plan on what it's going to take between now and August to start up. And Dave will rattle it. He's a construction manager. He'll rattle off quicker than you and I can. So we can get that from him. But that is different than a formal RTO that we haven't even approved yet. And Alan's team, we have reviewed it. We're close to being done. I would argue that we'll put those things in for a new contract, like we've updated Alpine's contract, as the chairman said. But at the end of the day, our job is to review the amendment that we've already approved this charter school, do the best we can with helping them start up. But the worst thing, if we want this school to be successful, and you and Doug did a tremendous job helping Chugwater, if we want this school to be successful, if we don't give them approval pretty soon, they will not make their August startup. And if we want to continue to impose new ideas on them, we might just start talking about waiting another year.
John?
Madam Chairman, thank you. Well, I understand the concept of an amendment. If you'll recall, the contract, the charter, incorporates by reference the application. And I don't have that document in front of me, but it did include the proposed building, which has changed. It proposed that they would buy and construct a building and they would go deeply in debt for that. That's changed. It proposed a break-even analysis that required that they have somewhere near 150 students, as I recall. That, I assume, has changed because they no longer have that big debt burden. So this amendment, in my view at least, does not encompass all of the changes because those provisions remain. They have not been removed by this amendment. I think all of those provisions should have been in an RTO. And that's kind of the difference between the old application process and what I think is the new application process. So I'm quite willing and happy that they've streamlined it, but I think we should not allow the streamlining to also omit the other part of the streamlining, which was to have an RTO that described all the things that need to occur before day one of opening. And I don't think those are substantial burdens. I think they're doing all of that. My guess is they've done an analysis of the cost of their building and the debt service and what it's going to take for a break even and how many students they need to have, all those things. If they haven't done, they will do them before they decide whether or not to open the school. So I'm a little concerned that we think that we've cured all of the things in the original document with this amendment. We haven't. We've cured that one portion that talks about who is the ESP, and I'm happy we're doing that, and I support that we're doing it, and I think Academic will do great work for them. But that doesn't mean that we have to live by the original document if we think there are other things that should be reviewed. So, and again,
So
Madam
John,
Chairman,
I'll just
I'm
share
happy-
this with you.
Yeah.
Every one of the 3 schools that has been approved to this date has had changes since their contracts were approved. And we didn't raise a fuss. We didn't do a thing. And I would suggest to you that if you want to focus on the building, for example, that the alternative that Alpine has selected is a much more cost-effective solution than where they were in the beginning. And I'm going to say it one more time. I am not opposed to an RTO. I don't think this amendment approval should be contingent upon them filling out the RTO. I believe because they want to work with us and they want to get this school across the finish line, they are going to be happy to help us because this will be a means to be able to communicate with us. But to focus all of this discussion and this approval on an RTO, to me, is really, I don't even know what to say.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I agree. I think they probably will be happy to do essentially whatever the RTO type would encompass. And Mr. Buss or Dr. Buss could talk to us about that if we thought it was necessary. I just draw to the attention that the fact that we have seen things happen in the other charter schools that we think we should have known about in advance is our fault, because we didn't even have an executive director for quite a while, but we've had an executive director and he's been put to tough work. So I don't want to use any of that as an excuse for not doing the tough work going forward. We just need to get our act together. And part of that is finishing our application and the RTO and everything else. And again, I think the application committee is moving forward on that. And as we get applications here in a few weeks, maybe as early as a few weeks, I don't want to be bound.
I don't even want to entertain new applications if this is the kind of discussion we're going to have a year before they're going to open. I mean, I just feel this is so unfair to Alpine, John.
I'm not asking anything that's unfair. I just want to make sure that the representations made to us in the other document flow into this contract, and that I think would be in everybody's best interest to make sure that they have insurance in place, that they're able to meet their obligations as they come due, that they, all those types of things that good businessmen would do, businesswomen too, would do. I don't think any of that precludes them moving forward. I just think it ought to be with the mutual understanding that we've got work to do before we say, yes, here's the keys, start it up and run this school.
So are you aware, were you on Thursday when they gave
No.
us an update of?
I only turn this computer on every couple of weeks. You have to understand, not having a cell phone and not being notified in advance. If I happen to miss a meeting, I'm sorry.
You knew we were meeting with them on Thursday.
I knew, and I went online and I looked at the city council, and I looked at their webpage, and I looked at their Facebook page, and I could not find any link.
So John, I think this is an inappropriate discussion to be having here.
I agree.
I think we need to get back to the amendment and talk about the amendment and how do we get the amendment across the finish line. I think Mackenzie did a great job of taking the blue line document that we were given and drafting what he would suggest as words in the amendment. Do we have any questions or comments about that? How do we get this across the finish line, folks?
Can I just say something?
John?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I should have said this a lot earlier, but the one piece that was left out of the chronology of this process is that application committee early on said, here's some things we're super uncomfortable with. And it had to do with the governance and local control. And we made a list of them. There are things that we said, these are kind of non-starters with us. We're not going to be okay. And that's back when we were talking unified governance. And through thoughtful discussion, problem solving, working with Academica, that's what that Q&A, that's what that is addressing. And literally those were our concerns. Those things we said, not okay. We're listening to the board, and these are things that are not okay. So I just want to make sure we tied those two pieces together, because this has been a long process. We've had a lot of meetings, but it was that these are things we must see, or we're not comfortable going forward with the CMO or ESP agreement. And so that's really what the evolution of this has come to. And this document was kind of critical at the end. And were we able to check off all those boxes that our board was not comfortable doing? The other thing that I just would remind people is that we'll need to figure this out, because we have other schools that are also going to start coming to us now and wanting a similar arrangement. And so it kind of gives us a framework to move forward with those schools, one at least in our next cycle, I believe. And so I just want to make sure I tied that together, because we had long discussions about what are the things we're not okay with in this agreement. The statute allows for it. We're allowed to do this, but there are some things that just as a board we said, not negotiable. We want to keep things local. We want the money flowing to the right place. And there was a pairing of those two things. This document said all those things that you're worried about are okay. We did, I will admit, our first discussions months and months and months and months ago had to do with unified governance. We're just starting to learn about that. That did not meet the criteria that the application committee talked about. That was not an appropriate move forward. And so I just want to make sure I pointed that out, that this has come about because of long, thoughtful discussions. So,
do you have that list, John?
Yes. Can I find it quickly? No. I can almost do it from memory. The insistence on local control and local board.
Can you take them one at a time, please?
Yeah. Alan, you've got up?
Yeah, so we have that in an Alpine Amendment priorities document. Is that the one you're talking about, John?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay, so number 1 was financial governance and flow of funds.
Stop. Do we all agree that the agreement that based on the CMO agreement that we have in our contract with Alpine, that they have that? And I know this was particularly sticky and I know it's in that contract because APA wanted more control over their finances than we really wanted to give them. So I know it's in the original contract.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ellen.
Number 2 was budget authority and withdrawal process. So to establish a clear and fair process for school level access to and control over allocated funds. So that was, I think you're talking about there as well. Do you want to stop it all there, Madam Chair?
Do we have that? Do we believe we have that in our contract with them?
And in the amendment, I believe so.
Okay.
Number 3, lines of authority in relationship with the Charter School Authorizing Board Administration. That is in there as well. The 4th one was board representation and voting authority. And again, making sure that local boards had control over what was going on in their schools, and that is in there as well. And then the 5th one was local control and community engagement. So making sure that we preserve local control and ensure meaningful engagement of school and community stakeholders. So that is also in there as well.
Thanks, Alan.
Is there any discussion about these points? Is there any concern that we don't have that based on the original contract and the amendment? John Masters?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam,
You just muted yourself.
everybody's happy. I think what you're asking is whether we think we legally have that. And I think that's a question that should be presented to our attorney rather than to us as individuals. So the 4 or 5 points that Dr. Buss suggested, I think would be properly addressed to Mr. Williams to say, yes, that's included, or no, that's not included. Thank you, ma'am.
Mackenzie, we're putting you on the spot. Do you want to answer that question, or would you prefer to adjourn to executive session?
I do think that's probably an executive session topic, but I also don't have a comprehensive knowledge off the top of my head, so I might need a little time to consider the question.
John Masters?
Madam Chairman, could I suggest that Dr. Buss provide that list to Mr. Williams? And we're meeting again tomorrow. I don't know if he'll have an opportunity to consider them between now and tomorrow, but I think that might resolve the issue.
I'm sorry. I guess
John Waller?
I'm sorry, I must have misinterpreted. So what I was trying to point out was what the priorities of the application committee were. I don't know. I'm unclear on why it's a legal precedent. That I was trying to point out that we had set priorities and we said these are things that we have to see in place to go forward with an agreement like this. But maybe there are legal implications but I want to be clear, that was not legal. That was what the committee said it was our priorities and things that were very important to us. Does that make sense? I'm just.
Well, here's a different approach to it.
Yeah.
Why don't we take them one at a time, and what is the evidence that's provided between the original contract and the amended contract that demonstrates that that is indeed the case?
Okay. Alan, would you mind if you could maybe read it off, and then I'm going to try to pull from this document to see if we're there. Can you start at the first one again?
All right, so the first one was financial governance and flow of funds.
Okay.
So in other words, we wanted to make sure that the funds were not going to be going to another organization and then dispensed to the school. We wanted to make sure that the school would be receiving the funds directly from the district, the local district.
And if my memory serves me correctly, that was in the original contract.
Yeah. Can I read the response here that addresses that? The charter school and the CMO maintain separate legal entities, separate budgets, separate financial records. Public funds remain under the control of the charter school governing board and are expended pursuant to board approved budgets. The CMO is compensated only as provider in the services agreement and does not commingle funds. Great.
John Masters?
Madam Chairman, John just read from a document, and I don't know if that was the contract or if that was something else.
That's the one we got from Academica, the Q&A from CMO document.
Okay, so that's why I suggested the Q&A be incorporated somehow into the contract, because an extraneous document means nothing. It's not in the contract. If it's an attachment to the contract, it means something. So if we're going to rely on that document, let's make sure it is in fact part of the contract between the CMO and the charter school.
Mackenzie?
Madam Chair, we certainly could add a Q&A as a document that's incorporated, it presents all kinds of issues. Normally, when you incorporate a document, it's a pretty clear expression of the obligations of the parties. I hadn't considered this before this moment, what it would look like to incorporate the answers to these questions. I mean, certainly we can mechanically do it very easily. I would just be a little bit wary of what would it actually mean? Like, I'm always thinking in any kind of contract drafting, if there is a dispute, what does the dispute look like, and what do the words in the attachment mean for the purpose of resolving the dispute? Do they clearly delineate duties in a way that would resolve an issue there? So I don't know exactly what that would look like, given that this is a format that was never intended to be in a contract and wasn't written with that in mind. And so I don't know exactly what that would look like. It also adds a layer of complication when it comes to our contracts unit review, because they would be looking at it and asking some of the same questions. So I think mechanically, I think that's relatively simple. Whether that's a good idea, I think that's a different question, and it might raise more issues than it solves.
John Masters, do you have your hand up again?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Attaching it as a separate document is not really good practice. I agree with our attorney. But it could be easily added to the amendment document, I think. All five, I think there were five areas I think could be line items that found their way into that amendment document. And so, again, I'd suggest that might be the resolution rather than trying to incorporate a document that really was never intended to be used in that fashion.
I'm not sure it's necessary, because I believe a lot of these pieces are already included in our contract with them.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, John.
That's why I asked our attorney whether they are in fact included, because I don't have the original contract in front of me.
Madam Chair, my question is this. If they were not included in the contract, don't you think Alpine would probably have mentioned something about that along the way?
Madam Chairman?
Yes, John.
When you reduce a relationship to a written document, typically the statements and the negotiations go away, and all you have left is the written document. And I suspect that's the case with the state's basic contract. So oral representations become meaningless. Extraneous negotiations.
We have an attorney.
Yeah. So I would ask if that is in fact the case of our attorney. And maybe, again, he wants to go into executive session, but that's up to him.
Madam Chair, I don't know that requires executive session. That's very clear in our contract that everything is reduced to the contract language, and previous representations don't have any legal effect.
So I'm not sure where this conversation's going.
I'm sorry, neither. I'm sorry you brought it up.
What I'm hearing is, John, you want to blow up the whole amendment.
Madam Chairman, that's not right. We don't have to do anything on this until tomorrow, and technically we don't have to do anything tomorrow, although it looks like it's on the agenda and we should do it tomorrow. And that's why I asked the question, how difficult would it be, and whether Mr. Williams has enough time and capability to get it incorporated and through his review process before our meeting tomorrow, that the responses to these 5 issues be delineated in the amendment document. And I don't know the answer to that, which is why I raised that, that is a possibility only.
So you do want to blow up the amendment?
I don't consider that blowing up the amendment. I consider that making it clear and probably avoiding problems down the road, which I think we should all strive for.
Mackenzie?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So I will make time for any task to get that done. That's not an issue. I guess my main question is, I'm not sure that I've been exposed to the document that you're going off of, the 5 considerations. It sounds like a kind of a rubric document. I mean, I can
12.
certainly point out pieces of the existing contract that might be relevant. I don't know that I can answer questions about whether or not it's been satisfactorily met, just because those are decisions that the board members you are all going to have to make in terms of informing your vote on this. And so I don't know that I can provide a thumbs up or thumbs down. If it's something as simple as, is there a provision that says XYZ, certainly I can answer that definitively. But if it's a question of, does this meet our goal of doing XYZ, I might be able to point out some provisions in the agreement. But I can't answer the underlying question of whether or not it meets that requirement necessarily. That's going to have to be a decision for the board and board members when you're voting. So I just want to make sure that the limitations of what I can do are clear.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, John.
May I pose a question to our attorney?
Sure.
Mackenzie, you said you're willing to do what needs to be done. Could you get that accomplished by tomorrow afternoon? And would it require somebody in your contract approval group to look at it? Or I'm just wondering what your capabilities really are. Because I don't know how many there are. I said 5. I heard somebody say there are 12.
There's 12.
If there are 12 things, maybe it's just a matter of making a simple list of the 12 things that we think have been satisfied and making sure that everybody knows that they're in the contract. I don't know. You and your work schedule and your internal processes are, I don't want to say mysterious, but they're certainly your own process.
Sure. As I said, I will make sure that whatever needs to get done gets done. I don't know that bringing our contracts unit, they approve contracts as to form. And so, that's what they would be looking for, and to see whether the state overall is sufficiently protected. Other than identifying unclear contract terms, which is why I mentioned that with the idea of incorporating the FAQ, that would create those problems. They wouldn't really have any significant input on the remainder part of the contract. So I don't know that that would be necessary. So I don't know if that quite answers your question, but I guess I'm just not entirely sure that what I'm going, maybe I can get you part of the way there, and I'm absolutely happy to do that, but I'm not sure that I can resolve all concerns through whatever I'm doing. Maybe it will help focus the further discussion.
So Mackenzie, as I look at the first page of the frequently asked questions, and I look at roughly 1 through 5, I have very strong belief that most of this is incorporated in the original contract. When I get and start going through page 2, I'm not sure some of this stuff belongs in a contract with us. And that would also be something that I would like you to tell us. For example, I don't think when they answer no to a question, there's no need to put it into the contract. For example, can the CMO bind the school on behalf of can the CMO bind the school or act on behalf of the school with the authorizer? No. Why would we incorporate that in a contract?
And they,
John Waller?
well, I somehow, I think I got off on a tangent here. I wanted to emphasize that this was the work of the application committee. We had questions that we wanted to answered, and that's the context. This was not legal advice from anyone. This was, we're saying, here's our hangups. Can you guys answer the question? I guess I'm confused, and maybe I'm just not following it up. Are we saying there's a danger that they didn't tell the truth on here and they're going to go back? I guess I'm not understanding. What is that the danger? Is that we're worried they're saying they said no here, but they're going to switch to yes? I just need some help understanding, because this was the result of them saying, we said we had some concerns, and they said, well, okay, give us your questions and we'll answer them here. So I guess I'm just confused on why this would belong in there, unless, if there's a risk that they're not telling the truth and they go back on it. Does that make sense? I just need to understand it better, what we're thinking.
John Masters, is your hand up again?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I guess addressing John Waller's question first, I think we discussed that everything that's not written, we just wash away in the future review of this contract. We have to look at only what's in the contract itself. So although they may have told us these things, unless they did it with some sort of fraudulent purpose, which I don't want to ascribe to anybody, it's going to go away. The second question, which is the one I had raised my hand about, is the frequently asked question document the response to the 12 questions that you submitted? And I haven't seen.
No. I think it was, we shared some of our concerns with them, and then they produced this document for us.
So the 12 questions were satisfactorily resolved to the committee's approval, I guess. Is that correct?
To me, the answer is yes. Alan, what do you think?
Yes, that would be the case. Once we had these in mind, then we didn't have any further concerns in terms of the direction we were going with the CMO/ESP.
Yeah, and I agree with the chairman that the example she pointed out, it's pretty clear, I think, in our contract, just based on my memory, that they can't bind the state or this board. Neither can, neither the charter school nor the CMO or the ESP. Nobody can bind us. But that would be an example of something that I think Mr. Williams in his review would say, I did not include that because refer to paragraph Article 7, number 3, and that would resolve it. But if it's not in there, we need to add those types of things. I'm pretty sure that one is, but I don't know about the others because I haven't seen your questions that you presented. I've only seen this response document.
And Madam Chair, I asked Elaine to forward a copy of the original contract to the board members, so everybody should have that in their inbox and available to them as well.
Thank you, Mackenzie.
Thank you.
Alan?
Madam Chair. Okay.
Fred, can you hold on 1 second?
Absolutely.
Alan?
No, I just wanted to share where I'm coming from on this. And again, having worked through this and having had the conversations, both with internally and also with some external stakeholders on this, my take on the amendment that was provided, with especially with some of the highlighted areas that were in an attempt, I think, to address the concerns that we had raised. I didn't have any issues going. I don't have any issues going forward with the amendment as it's presented. I recognize that we've got a lot of things that we do need to address going forward, but in terms of our kind of initial review of this whole process and also of the responses that we received, the amendment was satisfactory for me in terms of being able to move forward with the school. I just wanted to say that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, I completely echo what Board Member Buss said. And recognize, and McKinsey put it into his guidelines to us, that we have work to do to continue. As you said, this contract we learned from the SLIB and we strengthened this contract. What we learned in the past 6 months, 12 months, will allow us to put some rulemaking in place and some guidelines in place. But given what we've learned, what Alpine's learned, what Academica has learned that the state of Wyoming wants, which is local control, board at the school, local control, not centrally, and the fact that all the ADM money goes to the school and it's not touched by the CMO or ESP. I feel confident that they're aligned with where we're going. Could we tighten that up and make it better in the future? Absolutely. But quite frankly, I don't think, certainly myself, understood even that configuration 6 months ago. So we're learning, we're growing. I think in the future we will be tighter on this, but I have confidence that we're going forward in the right direction with a good construct. Thank you.
So Mackenzie, is there any way for you to take the frequently asked questions and go through and see if there's any risk to us as a board
Madam
that they're
Chair.
not addressed because of the contract?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Helen.
pardon me for interrupting.
Oh, please.
I guess, I mean, these were more general questions. They weren't really meant to influence so much the structure or content of the contract amendment. And so I guess we've presented a more broad presentation of some of our concerns, again, those 5 areas. I would recommend that maybe, because those were 5 areas that had been consistently shared across the board in terms of local governance, financial independence, and so forth. And I guess I would suggest that we focus on those 5 areas more broadly, that those are addressed rather than these specific questions, because that wasn't the intent of these particular questions. The questions were really just trying to learn more about what a CMO does and what it doesn't do and what its role would be. And so again, in terms of the contract amendment or the original contract, we just want to make sure that, again, our schools, our local communities are engaged, that we have independence, that they're that they're accountable to the Charter School Authorizing Board. And again, I think it's those 5 areas that we wanted to maintain consistency with in the amendment. And because I think some of those things, some of those issues grew out of our experience in approving Alpine in the first place. They may not be there because, again, those were things we learned through that process. But I believe that they have been captured in that initial contract.
Thank you, Ellen. John?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. What Dr. Buss just described, I think, are negotiations, and the negotiations were successfully resolved. And all I'm asking is the resolution be reflected in the written document, because the oral negotiations, as soon as we sign the written document, will become meaningless. And I'm not suggesting bad motives on parts of anybody, but memories fade, written documents do not. And that's why I've suggested that if it's 5 or 12 or whatever it is, that those be reviewed by our attorney, and he can assure us that they have been properly incorporated within the document. And if not, that he can make whatever changes are needed so that they become properly incorporated. and I'm not trying to be a pain in the butt for everybody. I'm just trying to tell you, written contracts are written contracts. And the reason they're written is because if we just dealt on a handshake and an oral agreement, we'd be in court all the time because we wouldn't be able to refer back to what was said. The written contract becomes what was said. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
So John, the one thing that concerns me the most is I feel like there is this undercurrent that we don't trust Alpine to make good contractual agreements with their ESPs. That's what I hear as an undercurrent under all of this.
I don't mean to be putting an undercurrent under any of this, Madam Chairman, but you have to imagine the situation down the road where something happens and people are upset and they look to us and we look to them and they look to the ESP and we start pulling out all these documents and we decide where the problem is. And I don't want anybody to look to us and say, well, the problem was you didn't adequately supervise or you didn't see the contract or, whatever it might have been. I want to keep us out of such litigation. And I think that ought to be commendable for all of us. There ought to be clarity in what we do, whether it's the Charter Authorizing Board or the local district or the local school board or Academica, that we ought to have as much clarity as we can. There's nothing wrong with clarity. That's all I'm asking for.
I'm not suggesting we shouldn't have clarity. What I'm suggesting is our clarity should not be driven based on the fact that we don't trust that Alpine did a good job negotiating their contract. And that's what I'm hearing.
Okay. If Ford Motor Company, which you're familiar with, ordered seats from Takata, I'm sure everybody had great understanding of what that meant. And then things blew up because their airbags were faulty. People turned to the contract, not to the oral negotiations that went on in advance of that. And
John Waller.
I'm not saying it's going to blow up. I'm not saying that I think we're dealing with shysters or anything else. I'm just saying the document, when it is in its final form and signed by you on behalf of the board, signed by the board, better, describe the negotiations that went on that led to our decision to approve the agreement.
What do you mean by negotiations?
Well,
between Alpine and their contractors?
No, the questions that Dr. Buss submitted to Alpine, to which they responded, or Academica responded, those were negotiations. Those need to be. This conversation doesn't memorialize those conversations. What memorializes it will be a document that Mr. Williams approves for our signature. And if it's not in there, it's gone. It doesn't mean anything. Not saying that people, we may be dealing with people who no longer are not even employed at Academica or are on the local board, or even us. We might all be gone. The only thing that will be left is a written document.
And
John Waller.
Okay, I'm sorry. I keep trying
to.
John
may be gone too, by the way.
Yeah,
just kidding, John.
Yeah, if you could come sooner than later. I guess I'm very. I think we've spent the majority of our last hour talking about the contract and rewriting the contract. I thought this is just relates to an amendment to the contract, and I guess I really want to make sure we stay focused because we're getting into we'll rewrite the contract and everything else, but don't they already have a contract that's been approved? And are we just talking about the amendment? And I feel like it seems like we don't have a place to be talking about. Let's revisit the whole contract. I thought we were just talking about an amendment to the contract with a couple changes that would switch the CMO ESP. And so I guess I think we're making this so big, and I don't know if it's even right. I don't know if we have the right to do that. Say, let's rewrite all the contract. But I don't maybe I just don't understand it. I just want to make sure that what we're talking about is the business at hand. And to me, the business at hand is an amendment that the board needs to make a decision on. And the quicker we do that, the better. And do we have does it meet the statutory requirements, all that? But I guess that's where I'm concerned. I guess personally, I'm uncomfortable talking about let's revisit the whole contract. And redo it. I don't know the way of a premise to do that or grounds to do that. And I do want us to stay somewhat focused just on this is about the amendment and that's being presented to us right now about a switch over to a different ESP. But am I crazy? Help me out with this.
Madam Chair?
No, John, please, I'm going to ask Fred to talk next. Fred?
I was just going to say the same thing that John said, back to what I said earlier. And though we can always get smarter, I would argue that, as in the case of the airbag in the situation with Ford, if we think that we can write a contract and we should spend time writing a charter school contract that would never create a problem for anybody, I think we're kidding ourselves, number one. Number two, I think we have to recognize we have a contract, recognize this is amendment, recognize going forward we can get better. But also, all we're doing is changing an ESP with ESPs that are proven to be out there in the marketplace and have committed to us and to Alpine what the process is going to be, and it'll be in contract. I get it. But where does this stop? Does this stop with the contract on buses? Because I'm more worried about buses, quite frankly, and people driving our children on buses. And maybe we should be making sure that we have every bit oversight on buses. And I think we should probably interview every bus driver that ever takes our kids out on the highway. Thank you.
John Masters?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. John Waller raises a question why we're talking about these things, I guess. The original contract includes by incorporation the application. That application is incomplete in my mind, and certainly wrong now, because it had all sorts of things. It described a building that was going to be built. It described how they were going to borrow the money and how they were going to repay it through a $300,000 lease. It described lots of things, which technically we ought to be amending today or tomorrow. We're not. So normally when you adopt an amendment to a contract, you're essentially saying, with the exception of the things that we're changing today, everything else is still fine. That's not going to be the case tomorrow, because we know, at least I know, there are problems that should also be, I don't want to say problems, changes that should also be made to the contract.
Okay.
As far as, do we want to get involved in the management of the agreement by deciding who the school driver should be? No, but we do want to make sure that they have a standard that says the school driver will possess a CDL. The school driver will go through whatever training the state requires a school bus driver. We can look at those types of things and say, yes, we're satisfied that they're hiring competent people to drive the students around. I don't want to decide who their driver is, but I think we should at least know on that particular issue that they are acting as a board should act to make sure that things are going forward in a proper way. This is the supervisory role that we possess by the statute. It's not to do the work, it's to make sure that the work is done properly.
Can I ask a question then? Because a precedent question. Then are we essentially saying that if someone in the future comes to us with an amendment for the contract, you will be at risk of us revisiting your contract and redoing your contract? I mean, is that what we're saying?
Okay, you're asking a legal question, and we have an attorney in the room. When I practiced law, I would say, yes, you are incorporating the old contract wholly, except for the things you've changed.
Yeah.
And they told us they were going to build such and such a building. They're not. So that should have been changed.
That building is not in their contract.
It's in the application.
In the application.
The application is part of the charter because it was appended as an appendix to the charter agreement. Now, Mr. Williams can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how I recall it being done.
So this is going to be unprofessional, and I apologize to those that are watching it. But listen, if we are going to say that every school that applies, and they come up with a plan that says that their building's going to look like this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and that isn't going to evolve over time, we might as well pack up our bags and go home, because it's not going to be that way. If we look at the process and we look at the risk that these people take, time, money, whatever, they're moving forward and they're evolving with us. And if we can't let them evolve without having to do a major construct change to the contract, all that contract says is that they have to notify us about the change. They don't say that we.
Madam Chairman, you've just highlighted why the application is flawed. The application should be simplified. They should tell us we are
So,
going
John,
to.
it's just not fair to be having this discussion. This is a
But
great
that-
discussion to have at a retreat. This is not fair to hold up Alpine for that.
I'm not suggesting we hold it up for all these other changes that probably ought to be made. What I'm telling you is the application going forward should be simplified. It should say, will you have 6,000 square feet available? And they say yes. And then on our RTO, we say, did you get your 6,000 square feet? We shouldn't really care if the building is up to code and it meets whatever the state standards for schools are. Beyond that, we shouldn't care whether they borrowed the money or anything else. But they did. That's the way the old application, and I hope it goes away, but that's the way the old application was formed.
So
And that
what are you
application-
looking for tomorrow?
Well, the application gets dropped in, and the application is now being amended. And I'm just saying, we
No,
shouldn't
the
rely on
application is
anything
not being
oral.
amended.
If we're relying on something, then that reliance needs to be put into writing.
The application is not being amended. The contract is being amended.
Well, the application and contract essentially are the same thing at this point,
They're
because the
not.
application is part of the contract or the charter, and the charter is being amended. So,
Madam, John, I'm sorry, Madam Chair,
Please, Fred.
John, I'm going to say something that I'll probably regret later, but I don't think you knew what an RTO was when we did our contract. So the next time
No.
somebody goes to a new event and we say, oh, we ought to do that, we should have everybody rewrite their contracts. Is that what we're saying?
no, I'm saying the application process should be updated.
No, I'm
And I
talking about
think,
the
I think the
RTO that you want
application
them to do
process
now.
is being updated.
I'm talking
and-
about the RTO that you want to do now. That, I mean, we
No,
got
I think
smarter.
the RTO is a guidance document that allows everybody to know things
I
are
think
ready to
you're
roll.
smart enough to understand what I'm saying. We are evolving. These guys are doing way more than the 3 SLIB schools do. We have, and I have complete trust that they're going in the right direction. Can we do more? Yes. McKinsey's recommending we do, but John, we can't do that in the time allowed. We can't write all these policies and directions and dot every I and T for every, we got new schools coming up just in a few weeks.
I am fully aware of all of that. The problem is.
What are you specifically asking for to get us to be able to approve this contract amendment tomorrow?
Whatever negotiations occurred and the representations that were made as part of those negotiations should be reduced to writing. And they should
What
be,
negotiations are you talking about?
well, we heard that the application committee had a bunch of questions concerning the
Those aren't
ESP.
negotiations. The negotiation was between Unified Governance and the CMO.
Okay. I've stated my piece, and, as a fiduciary, I'm trying to do what a fiduciary would do. And
I want to understand. I want to get to yes tomorrow. I want to be able to say, thankfully, we finally got Alpine across the finish line. What are you asking for?
I'm asking for the things that we are relying on to approve the application be included. If they're reduced to a simple statement saying, we will retain fiscal control of all funds that the state sends to us, maybe that solves a whole bunch of issues. And maybe that's in there. I don't know, because I don't have the old contract. And
But shouldn't
And-
we?
that's why I asked the question of our attorney.
McKinsey sent it to you. He said that earlier.
Well, Elaine did, yes.
Thank you, McKinsey.
Well, it's a, I don't know, 80-page document. And I
Start
certainly
reading.
don't have the opportunity to review it right now.
Well, we probably could have read it in the time that we've taken to have this dialogue.
Well, I think it's been a helpful dialogue for me. And I hope it's been helpful for John and everyone else, that when we are looking at an amendment, whatever people are saying needs to get into writing. Or it can be ignored. Your choice. If you want to ignore it, don't put it in writing. Madam Chairman, I hope I'm not misstating the law, and I'm hoping that our attorney.
You're not our attorney.
That's what I'm saying. I'm hoping our attorney will correct me if I've misstated anything about the law. But I did spend better part of 40 years in contract law.
You're not our attorney.
I'm not trying to be your attorney.
So what do we do for tomorrow, folks?
Madam Chair, I feel pretty satisfied that what Board Member Masters said, that the fiduciary responsibility, the accountability for the school is in the agreement that we have in the understanding. And I think we could probably refine that with McKinsey's help to make sure it's there, and then we can go forward. As long as we don't come up with a bunch of other ideas once we have that closed.
Mackenzie, can you assist us?
Yeah, I was, if I could have, I guess the question is, I could easily create a kind of a crosswalk between sort of the contract and those issues that were the criteria. I believe Mr. Buss mentioned something like 5 different concerns or something along those lines, or maybe we want to base it off of the FAQ, but I could easily create a crosswalk based on sort of comparing what in the contract seems to address those particular concerns. That might help.
Should we agree to make sure that we're comfortable with exactly what we're saying so we don't have something new tomorrow? Local control, their own board, fiduciary accountability directly to the school.
Board makeup.
Board makeup.
Yeah.
John Masters, anything else that we have to put in there that would make you feel more comfortable, sir?
No,
With all
not put
due
in there,
respect.
look for.
Look for. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Masters, anything else you'd want to put in there?
Anything that we as a board think is important should be in there. That's all I'll say. And I can't speak for the other members of the board, especially ones who aren't here. So.
Could you speak for yourself and ask and let us know if there's anything else that you think you need to see?
Well, I thought the concerns posed by the application committee were, from what, I just heard them read, they seemed reasonable and they seemed like we got a satisfactory response. And I think somehow that to me, that's negotiation. Somehow that needs to be incorporated in the document. And it sounds like the crosswalk that our attorney is proposing may solve all of that. I don't know. And again, maybe this is all just nothing. But, I'll be gone one day, maybe tomorrow. We'll all be gone at some point. And the people following us are going to have to live by what was written, not by what was said today or 2 weeks ago in discussions. So let's make sure that they can follow our footsteps.
John Waller?
Okay, I'm sorry, confused again. We keep talking about putting language into. Isn't it their amendment coming to us? I guess I'm wondering, where are we putting this language?
Can I address this?
Yeah, because that's what I'm trying to figure out.
So we are the authorizer.
Yeah.
People come to us with their amendment. If we don't like it, we can say no, or we can help them get to yes by negotiating. The same would be true on renewal application. The same would be, we have a lot of authority simply to say no. If we say no, that kind of stops the discussion. It stops the school. It, revokes the charter. We have a lot of power through the ability to say no. Let's not use it if we don't need to.
No.
But we're not bound because they asked for a nickel that we can't negotiate for 3 cents. We're not bound by them coming to us and dictating the terms. We're not bound by that. If they need an amendment, they need an amendment. And I think they do need an amendment. And I think their amendment is probably pretty good.
Yeah.
But I just don't know that it's as complete as it needs to be.
So what you're questioning, what I keep hearing is, because all we're doing is swapping out APA and we're putting in WCA and Academica. That's all we're doing with the original contract.
Well,
And what I'm hearing is that you don't trust the relationship that they will negotiate between Alpine and WCA and Alpine and Academica. So we got to make sure that it's all in our.
so I never want to rely on trust. I want to rely on something that people agreed to in writing. Because trust is.
But John, what's important is, Mackenzie, does it really matter what Alpine negotiates with WCA? What's important is what Alpine has put in a contract with us and signed. And if they hire somebody that can't deliver what they've put in the contract with us, shame on them.
Shame on them means no when it comes up for renewal. That's what it
Correct.
means.
Exactly.
Correct. You got it. That's what our check and balance
Or
is.
it allows us to withdraw the contract.
Correct. It could even be revocation, which happens more quickly than non-renewal.
Correct. But
It-
that doesn't mean that we should be overseeing, making sure that contract says the right stuff.
And I just,
Well, okay. So when it comes up for revocation or non-renewal, I want to be able to go back to our agreement as amended and say, you agreed to do A, B, and C. Because we put it in there and you agreed to it. Not because I heard that people were happy and we trusted them to do A, B, and C, because that's not good enough. They
I
agreed
think
to
this
it.
conversation really should stop, because I think what we're going to find is most of what we're arguing about is already, because I just read the contract this weekend, is
Good.
already in their original contract.
Yeah.
John Waller?
I'm sorry, I should have had this earlier, but, and this is just from my vantage point, but I encourage what's happening with this process. I wasn't here when we first got that contract, but my understanding was there's a lot of discord in that community, did not like that APA. This was a very committed group, and so they went back to the drawing board and said, what do we want here? What is important to our community? And they did their homework and they partnered with somebody else. When we went down for that visit, that was the tipping point. We had person after person after person after person come up and testify, and they said, now with this curriculum and this partnership, this is what we want. And my hope is that other communities will have that ability to do that too in the future and switch. If they're not happy with what's being done, I think that's something we want to encourage, not discourage. And so, I mean, just from my vantage point, I want to see the ability to make a change. If it's not meeting your community's needs and you're not happy with it, I want people to be able to come to us and say, we want to amend that. We want to make a switch right now. Because that's really our goal. Our goal is we want to make sure it fits the community needs. And I just think and I just want to state, we don't have to respond to it or anything. I just want to state that I think it's a healthy thing and a necessary thing sometimes to say, you know what, this is not meeting our needs. This is not what our community wants or needs. And so I just want to state that. And there's no reason, I don't want to argue with that or anything, but I want to encourage that behavior. I want to encourage folks that if it's not working for your community, send us amendment and let us consider it and consider a change that better meets your community. So does that
Madam
make
Chair, what John is describing is the updated NACSA application, where they make a statement such as, we will hire a qualified headmaster, not a statement such as John Smith has been hired as our headmaster. We think he's qualified. And then in the RTO process, we say, oh, did you hire a headmaster? They say, yes. Great. Let's see who you hired and whether he's qualified or she's qualified. That's why we're kind of in this mix. I love the idea that we give them the authority to move forward. They decide who to hire, where to be located, how to pay for things. They do all those things. And then we go in there. But we're not at that point right now. And it's unfortunate. And
So we hold them hostage because.
No, I don't want to
our
hold them
processes
hostage.
are-
I don't want.
We are holding them hostage.
No, I'm just
Madam
saying
Chair,
we've asked for certain things and let's put them in writing.
Madam
Correct.
Chair, so Mr. Masters, are you suggesting that we approve the headmaster also? Is that what I just heard?
Mhm.
No, in the updated application process that NACSA is promoting, which I assume is something similar to what Dr. Buss and his committee is considering. It will ask broad questions. Have you considered how you're going to find staff? Who will be, what do you seek in your headmaster? Things like that, rather than who is your headmaster? Is he or she qualified?
So to be honest with you, that's exactly what we've done, is
Right.
ask broad questions about this relationship with the CMO, and that's how we got where we are. We trust that that process is in place. If you think we have this staff and we're going to create a WDE charter school to be able to validate and do the background search on their headmaster, we're creating a whole new bureaucracy. Because if you're going to want to look at that contract, I mean, you stated yourself, it's hard to keep up with emails.
But we should have evidence that they did it.
Wow.
We should say, you hired somebody. Did you do a background search? Did you?
Oh, John, we're not the police, for crying out loud.
You know what? We are the police.
Madam Chair,
I don't want to
we
be
need
putting kids
I'm
in
going
a.
to put a stop to this discussion. This is,
Okay.
Wow, we're going down a rat hole here.
we're going down a real bad spot. I totally agree that there is certainly more work that needs to be done by the applications committee.
Absolutely.
I certainly agree that there's potential evolution that should happen. I do not agree that we should hold up this contract amendment for that to happen.
I think that our attorney will provide us the comfort, or at least provide me the comfort that I'm looking for tomorrow. But I don't know.
Thank
I don't
you.
have that comfort right now.
Well, I'm sorry about that. Perhaps if you had read the contract before you came, you would feel different. I don't know.
I did read the amendment.
Okay.
I found lots of typographical spelling errors, but those are irrelevant to me.
You must have missed those during the first time when we were very thorough the first time,
No,
by the
they
way.
were-
And you had an opportunity.
I must have, but I don't think they were in the first version.
Well, maybe we should read them again next week and go to another seminar and figure out what else we could ask for. I'm sorry, but I'm getting very frustrated.
Me too.
I'm more than willing to learn and progress, and we certainly have, but I'm very proud of where we've come. I'm proud of what Alpine has done. I'm proud of what we've put forward, and it'll get better tomorrow. I understand that.
Madam Chairman, I hate to
Dr. Buff?
I need to leave, Madam Chairman, so I rise to a point of personal privilege. My church conducts services on Shrove Tuesday, which today is Shrove Tuesday. And to me, that is a higher calling than this very important work that we're doing here. And I'm sure it'll disappoint everybody to lose my voice, but I must depart at this point. Thank you, everybody, for putting up with me.
Thank you, John.
Bye.
Dr. Buss?
Madam Chair, I was just going to say that I think that we've exhausted this discussion, and I would like to move that we adjourn for today.
We have a public comment
Comments. Okay.
on the agenda, so I'm going to open it up for public comment.
Madam Chair, Amy Weirda has her hand up.
Amy? Welcome. Amy, I'm sorry that we're building this plane as we're flying it and it's taken off from your airport, but
This has been how this whole project's gone. It's okay. I'm really sad that Mr. Masters left here. Yeah, good afternoon, Madam Chair. My name is Amy Weirda. I'm on the board for the Alpine Charter School. First of all, thank you all. We've, on our side, have put in tens of thousands of hours over the past couple years, and we know that you and your team are included in those many, many, many sleepless nights. So thank you. I just want to say, directed at Fred, thank you. You said the scenario very clearly. Our original contract was with APA, and while the language was different, the concept was the same. APA was serving as our contract management organization and our educational service provider all in one. For all the reasons that have been discussed, we parted ways with them. The new arrangement is broken into two pieces rather than an all-in-one package. Wyoming Classical Academy in Mills is serving as our contract management organization. We are using their branding, their framework to launch our school. They're providing us with training, services, support. The very first thing we're going to do when our headmaster arrives in March is ship them off to Mills to shadow, their headmaster. Additionally, Academica is contracted as the educational service provider. They're providing all the back end legal, media. We've just chomped all over their marketing team. The amendment is very simple. We're just switching from an all-in-one to two different entities that are serving that same purpose. And I think you all understand that, so thank you. I was hoping to speak direct to Mr. Masters, but in lieu to Mr. Williams, in our contract is already stated some of Mr. Masters' concerns. Clearly states schools shall adhere to all applicable laws, regulations, department policies related to procuring and contracting for goods and services. Clearly states school acknowledges and agrees it has no authority to enter into a contract that would bind the board or the department. School agrees to establish, maintain, publish, retain appropriate financial records, and make these records available to the board on request. And most importantly, there's language for notices to tell you about changes. Explicitly lines out governance. School is governed by a board of directors that remains incorporated in Wyoming nonprofit. But most importantly, to Mr. Masters' point, the board, meaning you, will have, the board, meaning our local school board, shall have oversight over the school in accordance with its powers, duties under Wyoming law, and an ability to enforce provisions of this contract. Alpine Charter School shall remain full governing authority, legal independence, and fiduciary responsibility. All accountability, performance oversight, contractual authority shall remain exclusively with the authorizing board and the local governing board. I feel all of Mr. Masters' questions are already written out in this contract, so I'm really confused at what other information we could provide for him at this time. Janine, Madam Chairman, also just wanted to thank you. As your board evolves, you're going to change your application process, you're going to change your procedures, you're going to build your procedures, and that's what a healthy board does. We just respectfully ask that we are not bound by any future procedures that have not yet been written. We ask that you just narrow the scope to our amendment and approve it at tomorrow's meeting. Thank you.
thank you, Amy. Does anyone have questions of Amy? Thank you so much.
Madam Chair.
Dr. Buss?
No question, but just a comment. I agree. As the existing or current current contracts and current contract amendments should not be held to future policy needs. So
Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you, Amy.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Doug.
sorry my workload carried me over to almost miss everything. I do have a couple of questions, but I hate to be repetitive. Maybe I can ask them later or something off air.
Can you hang on and did Meredith want to offer comment? Is that why she's on, Elaine?
Madam Chair, Meredith did have her hand raised, so I let her in to the room.
And we'll circle back to you, Doug, after Meredith. Go ahead, Meredith.
Madam Chair, thank you so much. And thank you to members of the board for taking the time. I just wanted to have on public record that with respect to all of the work that we are all doing and with respect to the funding from the state, we all make a commitment as board members to ensure that we are doing our due diligence in terms of research to the questions that we are asking of other board members, as well as showing up to meetings that might impact our potential decision when it comes to something as drastic as this. And I would just like to point out that it was said today that a lot of the due diligence in regards to questions to everything that we have done, public comment at our school board meeting, was not attended to by a member of this board. And I just wanted to point that out, that we all make the commitment with respect to these institutions. And I just would like that to be on public record.
Thank you, Amy.
Mary.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, Doug?
Thank
I'm
you,
sorry.
Madam. I think I can limit it to one question. What is the cost for Wyoming Classical acting as the ESP for Alpine? What's the dollar cost for that?
Amy, do you want to answer that? You've had the contract.
And I think I can answer it.
Yeah, John has that answer too, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Amy, but it's 1%. Am I correct?
Yes.
And then I guess I would add too, because Amy brought this up when we were down there, it's 1%, and some of those costs will be returned like through training and mentorships and things like that. So it's, they're paying it out, but they're also getting a lot in return for that. So Meredith and Amy, am I correct in that 1%?
My apologies. I got kind of kicked out of the panelist and back in, so I missed the
Doug,
question entirely.
Doug, can you repeat your question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wondered what the dollar cost is for Wyoming Classical acting as the ESP for Alpine. And if I understood you correctly, it's 1%. 1% of what?
We pay 1% to Wyoming Classical as part of the contract. However, up to 0.5% can be recouped if it's for training purposes. So if we send our headmaster over to shadow them, or we send teachers for a training, we can credit half of that percent towards the cost of that training.
And it's 1% of what? State funding?
The ADM money.
The ADM money. So under our proposed enrollment for Alpine, what would that cost be the first year? Do you have that? Can you extrapolate that? If you can, we can get it.
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I can certainly do some math and figure it out for you.
Yeah, if we could have that for the meeting tomorrow, that'd be great. And my apologies again, I just couldn't get my work done any quicker.
Yeah. I would also add we owe, so again, that's 1% to Wyoming Classical as our contract management organization. Additionally, we will pay a per student fee to Academica for their services.
So Amy, can you differentiate the back room from the front room? So Wyoming Classical is your front room and Academica is your back room, I'm assuming?
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. Sorry. Yeah, so again, Wyoming Classical Academy in Mills is acting as our charter management organization. And so they are providing to us, I'm sorry, I'm digging through these here. They're helping us to comply with applicable federal, state, local laws, helping to fulfill some of the accreditation with our Hillsdale curriculum. They will do leadership training, workshops, help us with compliance operations, assist with on-site professional development. Those are some of the highlights. Additionally, again, we're using their branding. You know, we're Wyoming Classical Alpine, as opposed to Wyoming Classical Mills. And just as an aside, I'll finish the question in a moment. You know, part of what we're doing here is beginning to build a network, you know, a labyrinth of schools throughout Wyoming. One thing we learned, you know, through our relationship with APA is, while we were contracting with them, we were going to sort of be a standalone school in Wyoming. And there's an appeal to that, right? Kind of the Wyoming, go get it, do it yourself. However, standalone schools have high failure rates. They're vulnerable. And so by contracting again with an established school in Wyoming, hopefully we'll be adding Riverton on in the years ahead, and who knows who may come down the pipeline. We're building a strength and a network across the state. So if we're having trouble with maybe some training with our teachers, hey, we can rely on this school. If this school's having trouble with writing a particular policy, they can start to copy and paste from other schools. So that's the strength that we're trying to build. That's the front of the house. Back of the house, Academica, again, they are providing.
Can you make sure you face the microphone, because you're much softer than everybody else?
Oh, I'm sorry.
When you speak.
Is that a little better?
Is that better, Doug? It's better for me.
I can hear her fine.
Okay.
Okay.
I apologize. I'm paging through documents as you're talking here. So Academica is providing back-end support. So for example, they helped us with drafting the job description for the headmaster. They launched the national search. They assisted us with the interview process. They, again, have a marketing team that we've been capitalizing on for getting information out to parents or putting in the local newspaper. They have a legal team. They have a procurement team that's already been let loose on our headmaster. So helping to secure curriculum, teacher resources, you know, desks, furniture, everything you're going to need to start up a school. They assist with all of that. And just as a reminder, I brought it up in one other meeting with you folks. We employ them. You know, Jessica's kind of been front and center with you guys over the last few months. She does not make any decisions without our approval. She does not act alone. So it's been an amazing resource to have.
Well, Amy, if I could, Madam Chair. Amy,
Sure, Doug, go ahead.
The only thing that jumped out at me last night when I was looking over this stuff was, you know, we're in fairly uncharted waters as we're starting, and the working relationship between the schools, I think, is excellent. Mm-hmm. All I'm concerned about is that whatever charge we agree to that you're going to have to pay isn't onerous, because it could be setting the, you know, a principle for others to follow, and that's the only reason I was asking. And if we can have some sort of dollar figure tomorrow, that would be great.
A dollar figure for which part?
With that, the 1%, what that would maybe do it on your projection. Mm-hmm. And he just wanted to know what 1% of that would be given the ADM.
Yeah, yes. for the projected enrollment.
Yeah,
for opening the door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can figure that out.
Okay.
You know, and I will add too, because it's a question that comes up frequently, you know, Academica is helping to draft budget scenarios. They're going to be working direct with our headmaster on that, as he's the one that's going to set the budget, again, with board approval. So there's kind of a new dynamic that we're in the middle of right now. So I can certainly give you numbers, but it's not the set in stone yet.
I understand that.
Okay.
I understand that. But I would hate to think, well, why didn't I ask that 6 months from now?
Meredith, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
I just wanted to elaborate on what Amy said, but I think we are still waiting to hear what our final ADM is. But if like our figures of what we've been told is around 13,000, so it's $130 per student per year.
I don't accept that number, so let's see where it goes. To me, based on what I know, it should be more up around 17, but we'll see.
Okay. But
Any
I
other
think
questions?
another,
I'm sorry?
well, just to elaborate on the local control and the local board members, there's a huge burden on the local group that decides to get together and start these schools. So the support is all Academica provides the support, while the school boards make all of the decisions, and they're still the front-facing people in their communities. And it's a huge risk and it's a huge effort on the part of the board members to be the front-facing in these small communities. So it takes a lot of grace, it takes a lot of bravery, it takes a lot of diligence, and it's the only way to make these schools successful, to have the support networks to come in and help.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? I apologize for some of what went on today. I think some of this discussion needed to happen. It probably went on way too long, and I apologize for not keeping it more under control.
Are you telling me I didn't miss anything?
Oh, you wish. How's your blood pressure?
Anybody else for public comment?
Hey, I would like to say one thing. I'd like
Please.
to thank you, Madam Chair, and the Vice Chair, Fred, and John, for going up and having that meeting up there. I think that was excellent, and I really appreciate your time and effort.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.
It was fun, actually.
Yeah, we loved it.
Meredith, I mean, Amy.
Is it true, Madam Chair, that you skied a little while you were there?
She left for a couple hours. We don't know what she was doing.
John, it was almost, you could almost play golf up there. It's not as much snow as we thought it'd be up there.
Yeah.
Amy, did you have another comment?
I do, and I just lost it.
You're not old enough for that.
That's what I was thinking.
She's starting a school. It's part of the process.
I'm losing my mind. Just to say, to echo those last comments, it was a joy to have you all up here to see the school. You were well received by parents. I got a text message from one of the parents who was there that evening. She said, "I didn't want to leave. It was so interesting. I really enjoyed those board members. They seemed so invested and passionate about their work." So, thank you.
We enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Alan, you did it once. You ready to do it again?
You bet. Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn for today.
Well done, Alan. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you. Doug, I'll be happy to chat with you if you'd like to give me a holler.
Yeah, okay. I got to let my dog out right now. He's about to drive me crazy. He's been locked up all day while I was. The wind was 60 to 70 mile an hour. So
wow.
I was out in it all day and I'm worn out.
Well, thanks for jumping on, Doug. It's important.
Thanks,
and I appreciate you being on.
Everyone tomorrow. Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.